This is the XT-EInk X4, a tiny, slim, super portable e-reader that kind of goes against the trend, because it doesn't try to be a tablet, it doesn't try to be a productivity tool, it just wants you to read. And honestly, I'm enjoying it a lot more than I expected, especially with the community-developed alternative operating system. It really clicks for me. So let's talk about it. I got my first e-reader almost 20 years ago, the Sony PRS-505. One of those early e-ink devices that just felt revolutionary. It was a dedicated reading device, and that was the whole appeal. One job, a unique display, no distractions. Fast forward to today, and a lot of e-ink has gone in the opposite direction. More variety and a lot more features. Reading, notes, apps, multitasking, color, all of it. And don't get me wrong, I appreciate the freedom. But sometimes you don't want an everything, no compromise device. Sometimes you just want something small, light, focused, and let's be honest, affordable. And that's exactly where the X4 comes in. At $70 US, not including shipping, it's not exactly cheap, but it's nowhere near as expensive as these other multi-purpose pocket e-ink devices from Books, VWoods or Bigme, which start at around $230 and can cost as much as $430. Besides the more affordable price, with its smaller 4.3-inch display, just 74 grams and 5.9 millimeters thickness, the XTE-EInk X4 also feels way more pocketable than the others. In fact, the difference is so big that it gets to a point where it's genuinely hard to notice it's even in your pocket. So this doesn't turn into a one device too many situation when carrying it alongside your phone. It's actually the other way around. The creator of the X4 basically envisioned you putting it on the back of an iPhone Pro Max magnetically attached via MagSafe. The X4 has a magnetic ring built in, so you can attach it to other devices and surfaces too. XTE-EInk also sells these ring magnets you can stick onto something and use as a holder. For other phones, your best bet is a case with a MagSafe compatible ring built in that also levels the camera bump a bit, because that is actually the biggest issue with many modern phones trying to attach the X4 to the back. Now, looking at the rest of the hardware, it's actually pretty clean and practical. There's a power button on the side, plus a rocker button for navigating the interface, because just like my old Sony PRS-505, there's no touchscreen here. Below that is a flush reset button, which instantly reboots the device, which comes in handy with the experimental nature of the device and flashing alternative operating systems, which I'll come to in a second. Then you've got the microSD slot. Getting the card out is a bit annoying because it sits so far in. If you've got longer nails than me, you'll be fine. Otherwise, you'll want a tool. The under-display buttons are a bit confusing at first because those are also rocker buttons, without any labels. But once you start using them, it's easy enough. The left one is back and OK, and the right one is for navigation. Same as the side rocker. The front buttons are very clicky. Personally, I found them a bit too loud, especially in a quiet environment. The side buttons are a bit less noisy, and I ended up using those most of the time. Build quality is solid. Even with how thin and light it is, the XTE-EInk X4 feels sturdy in the hand, and using it is really nice. That super lightweight reading experience in the palm of your hand is something else and really sets it apart from your typical e-reader. What's a bit rough around the edges right now is the software. I'd call it easy enough if you're willing to spend a little time getting familiar with it, but it's definitely not Kindle easy out of the box. A touchscreen-less device like this is simply less intuitive, but it's also some of the software choices. For example, EPUB files get indexed before they open, and I ran into books that didn't work properly. In those cases, you may have to run them through Calibre or convert them otherwise to fix whatever is going on, even if those files work fine on other devices. Text styling is also limited, and if you want to use your own fonts beyond the 2 pre-installed system fonts, you have to convert font files first. For me, that was a bit hit or miss depending on the font. So long story short, if you're willing to tinker, none of this is a deal breaker. But if you just want something that works perfectly out of the box with zero fuss, you'll probably be happier somewhere else. That said, there's a community firmware called Crosspoint Reader, which is what I'm using on here and which simply provides a much nicer user experience in my opinion. It's easier to navigate, has much better EPUB formatting, and text has anti-aliasing, because out-of-the-box text rendering on the X4 isn't great. As much as I like the portability and convenience, the typography with the stock firmware just isn't amazing for Latin letters. And the missing anti-aliasing of the operating system on the 220 ppi display can be pretty obvious depending on how close you hold it to your face. That's not an issue with Crosspoint Reader though, which is also pretty easy to flash onto the device, because the developers did a great job with the web interface. And that also highlights one of the main advantages I especially like about the device. It's how independent the whole setup is. You're not tied to a single ecosystem, and with the community operating system, not even tied to a system. Regarding battery life, I'd say you can expect the 650 mAh battery to last around 25 to 30 hours, which is very solid considering its use case for on-the-go reading. Standby drain out of the box is also very low. So in the end, I have to say I really enjoy using the XT-EInk X4. Build quality is great, handling is excellent, and the tiny lightweight form factor makes it the kind of e-ink device you can just throw in your pocket without feeling it like one device too many. The software is practical, but it lacks polish, especially when it comes to text rendering. That's why I mostly recommend this to tinkerers and to anyone who is willing to spend a little time learning the basics or just flash Crosspoint. If that's not you, then I'd still keep an eye on this company because future updates and future releases could make this a lot more mainstream. If you found this review helpful, like and subscribe. Thanks for spending your time watching, and I'll see you on the next one.